ARPA advisors, and this is Eric Barnett with Gleaners Food Bank. And so we're going to give you a brief overview of the John Marshall Opportunity Hub, and then kind of relate that to the Ready Ask. And be happy, I'm really happy to say we have no links or videos. So we may keep this to 10 minutes. We can go to the next slide. So, the Opportunity Hub concept is really looking at disconnected neighborhoods and finding a way to kind of connect them back to opportunity. And most disconnected neighborhoods have to travel quite a distance, which can be a challenge. You heard the Ivy Tech presentation talk about barrier busters. Certainly transportation is one of those. I think Eric's going to mention a little bit about that when we get to it. But the opportunities we look at are pretty robust: quality of life, economic opportunities, health and growth opportunities, and social. And that if you have those present in the neighborhood, you've started to connect it to opportunities that benefit households, benefit individuals, mean a more prosperous and healthy neighborhood. So when we started to look at the Far East Side about 3 years ago, and we looked at the John Marshall facility, which is a 340,000 square foot building on 40 acres of land, with about 85,000 people residing within 3 miles of it. And most of that geography pretty disconnected from opportunity. It seemed like an opportunity hub, carefully planned and thought through, could have a major impact on a part of our community that has suffered, and that by everybody's measures is really a desert in almost every sense of the term when it comes to opportunity. So we took this concept to IPS, who owns John Marshall, closed it down about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, and said, can we look at programming that building, get an exclusive option on the property, and see what we can do? And they've been a great partner. They've worked with us. They've been very patient with us. As I mentioned, we've been into this for almost 3 years, and it really was what took time was, number one, engaging the community itself and making sure that they're a partner in this and that they felt that this would be a value add to their community. And then number two, putting all the partnerships in place that are required to really bring significant, diverse opportunity to the community. That takes time, and we did not want to rush it. We certainly did not. We took our time. And we are here today, we feel, with a community that supports this, feels it would be a value add, and that we have some very important partnerships that can activate what we're calling the Opportunity Hub. We could go to the next slide. I covered some of this, but it's really an attempt, the vision is an attempt to establish a community gathering place to socialize, engage, and connect residents and small businesses, actually, to a diverse set of opportunities. We had an open house not too long ago where we had the ODOT matrix voting on boards, and we identified 27 different types of opportunities that could be placed within the Opportunity Hub. And folks got to vote on that, but what was more amazing, we had about another half a dozen that were added to that board. So you had the ability to kind of add some additional ones. Clearly, training, education, and job placement were at the top of the list. I was really surprised to see that right behind that was health and wellness, and that was very important to the community too. And those are two of the kind of the major pillars of the Opportunity Hub that we're considering for John Marshall. Next slide. So I wanted to kind of put this up. You can see the breakout of the neighborhood. It's a very diverse neighborhood, very young residents within the neighborhood. So we have a neighborhood of young people, and many of them are underemployed or unemployed. Before the pandemic, when basically most of the region was at full employment, about 2.5–3% unemployment, the 16 to 24 age group 28% unemployment. So that really speaks to some of that disconnectedness that we're referring to. This does start to show the proximity of John Marshall to the Mount Comfort corridor, which is exploding in jobs. And clearly there's significant opportunity, economic opportunity nearby. I will tell you, when we first went into the neighborhood and we talked to some of the leadership about what was happening on Mount Comfort, it might as well have been 500 miles away. Most of the neighborhood had no idea that that kind of growth and that kind of opportunity existed, basically, in my mind, across the street from this neighborhood. They know now, and they're well aware that indeed there's an opportunity here if we can make the connection. Next slide.
Can we ask questions as we go? Is that okay?
I'm sorry?
Can we ask questions as we go? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. How far north, does that go, south, east, and west?
It just touches the fort.
It just,
so yep.
North and south?
And south, it goes just down below 70,
okay.
I-70. So, and that's assuming it's a perfect circle. Which you shouldn't assume.
To 56
yeah.
or 42nd
yeah.
or...
So that's a really good question, because while within this 3 miles, we have some of the highest poverty and census tracts within that circle, we also have some pockets of really good middle-income neighborhoods. But they're all under kind of threat, and they certainly, again, have to travel outside that area to find the types of opportunities we're talking about. So this again shows, the Mount Comfort corridor and the proximity to it, I-70 industrial corridor, which has a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunity as well. There is opportunity surrounding this neighborhood, but the connections are not good. So just offer that by way of geographic context. Next slide. So John Marshall, huge campus, major asset, but right now clearly underutilized. Again, IPS has been a great partner in working with us to look at a very unique adaptive reuse for this building, in many ways still serving the purpose that the school did when it was operating. They had services, they had education, they had training, they had recreation. All of those are going to be assets that will be included within the Opportunity Hub. But we also have the ability to start connecting it back to the neighborhood. So you can see some of the design, that corner to the upper left, that is Midhofer and 38th Street. And we have about 2 to 3 acres there that we can activate and make really good community outdoor space. And so right now that's kind of a blank slate. That intersection is nothing to get excited about today, but what we'd like to do is reprogram that corner and start to make it an exciting intersection, and one that is kind of welcoming the community in. If you went out to that corner today, you'd see people walking back and forth. Transportation and mobility is an issue. A lot of people without vehicles, and so their main way of getting around is walking. But this is not a very friendly block today, but it will be a friendly block by the time we get done reprogramming it. You can see in the upper right, we actually are talking about maybe some kind of temporary retail stalls, and some of the businesses that we work with and maybe start within the hub itself could activate out on the corner, and we could do kind of mobile retail to activate the frontage. We on the right side, in the middle, that big rectangle, we see that as potentially a business park with being really home to a number of minority businesses and minority business startups. Next Studios is one of our partners on this, and working with John McDonald, we see him being very active. We keep the sports field down below. We have a major gymnasium inside that we hope to use for recreation as well. And then in the lower left, we're talking about transitional housing. So households that have been disrupted in some major way economically, have a low-cost place to stay, get back on their feet, take their children and themselves into the Opportunity Hub, take advantage of the services, get it back on their feet as quickly as possible, and then move on so we can get somebody else in that transitional housing. So that's about 60 to 80 units. Next slide. I'm going to start to turn it over to Eric here. I just wanted, this is the first floor, and you can see a number of different uses on this first floor. It's about 175,000 square feet on the first floor, including the auditorium and the gymnasium and the kitchen cafeteria. We have Eskenazi Health taking over the kitchen cafeteria and having a really exciting, robust, prepared food program, starting with medically prepared food for patients that need that are on a very special diet. But they're also talking about a community kitchen where they can invite the community in and entrepreneurs to prepare meals and cater, and also maybe some storefronts in the kitchen cafeteria on what we're calling Main Street, the major corridor in the building where we have entrepreneurs starting restaurants and then being rolled out of the space. Ivy Tech you can see, and we'll talk about Ivy Tech. I know there was a little bit of a discussion about that before we started today, so we'll talk about Ivy Tech in a minute. And then Gleaners down here. This is an old early space plan that we did. You can see Gleaners in the yellow. I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and if we could go forward another slide, maybe two. Next slide. Okay. So Glean, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. What you see here is a proposed use of our space where we would like to have a combined space of high capacity refrigeration, freezers, dry storage area for food, and as well as a large shopping area for neighbors. So that's gonna be pantry, market, hybrid. The reason for this is we have recognized through the last 2 years that this neighborhood is in acute need. We've been over there with the mobile pantry unit at the beginning of the pandemic weekly, right now bi-monthly, and then during the summer we'll go back to weekly, and we're seeing over 1,000 households every time we visit there. The need is incredible, but that also means that the opportunity is incredible here. So as kind of a base level service, we are one of those that we think can get people into the door and say, we're gonna help you with the need you have today, but also down the hall are other services that you can talk to. Upstairs might be some education opportunities you connect to. Across the way are gonna be some business opportunities for those that are succeeding in their journey to be able to start on an entrepreneurial vision. We're gonna hope to connect to transportation services over, especially to that Mount Comfort corridor, so that there are folks that use this as a collector point, but then move on to the Mount Comfort area when they are ready for employment and can start looking for those opportunities there. Part of the big reason for this is this part of Indianapolis has not been well connected to the rest of Indianapolis. And the distance there to Mount Comfort is just as far to get to other opportunities inside Indianapolis. And so we saw that as an opportunity to say, let's connect where it's easier. Let's connect where it's closer. And where these are neighbors. These are not people that are far away. These are people that are right at the border of the county that want opportunities and just don't have them in a place where they can get to. So the Opportunity Hub provides us the opportunity to serve. We're doing about 23,000 square feet. Half of that will be the serving space. Half of that will be this refrigeration, dry storage of food. And that space we do plan to share with other food partners. So Eskenazi Health is one of those. Second Helpings is another food partner we plan to share that space with so that they can have additional food storage for their needs, because they also, like us, are seeing constraints on their space that they have to serve. So we want to make sure we give them another opportunity in a location where we can reach a lot of those neighbors that we're looking to serve. So we're really happy about that, but we're also especially happy about the connection to other services. I'll share that one of our neighbors has shared the story with us some years back. She said that being in poverty is the hardest job I've ever had, because you have to interact with a number of different government offices to assist you with the things you need to survive. You have to spend time going to a pantry, which sometimes can involve waiting for a long period of time just to get the food you need to serve your family. You may or may not have any transportation during all of that, so you've got to take buses or walk to the various offices you need to get to. It can be a full-time job and that's just to subsist. That is not to succeed. And so having an opportunity hub like this can help eliminate some of those barriers by locating everything in one place. So that neighbor can say, I need this service, and you say, that office is right here. I'll walk you over there and introduce you. You know, this food is right here. You've got that covered for today. Let's talk about education opportunities. Let's talk about staff that Gleaners is going to use, where we're going to look for certification opportunities with partners like Ivy Tech to help people learn on the job and get a certification at the end of that job to help with other opportunities further down the line for them. So I think this is a really great concept. Gleaners is fully supportive of it. This is actually a greater vision than what we started with. So when we made that $400,000 request, we've actually grown since then. But we are very confident that we're going to have a lot of assistance in developing that fund and getting this vision off the ground. So I'll let Mike step back in and talk a little more about that side.
So just in the interest of time, there's a lot we could cover. Just to finish on the Opportunity Hub concept, you know, last fall, I was curious, I wanted some input on how we were doing this, what we were doing. Some of you may remember Jim McClellan, who ran the Central Indiana Goodwill, grew that into quite an impressive organization that's recognized nationally as one of the best Goodwills in the country. Gave him a call out of the blue. He was minding his own business down in Florida. And I said, Jim, been working on this concept, explained it to him, and said, yeah, I'd like your feedback on that. He said, Mike, I can't believe you're calling me. I said, why? He said, I just wrote a book on this. So he has a book about greater community impact. And it's about how organizations break down the silos, come together, and work to make a real difference. And they do it differently. They innovate, they look at the folks that they're serving, and they take a holistic approach together in partnership, as opposed to being spread all over the community and doing it separately, and not really understanding what the finish line looks like for everybody they're trying to serve. And each person is a little bit different. Every time we've gotten together, Eric, as a group, you can see the light bulbs going off and how we can work together and the synergies that create. So that really is the objective of the Opportunity Hub. It's not being done now, but there is an opportunity. Jim has volunteered to be an advisor and help us, as I say, write the software for this program, metaphorically. Because this will not be easy. This is not an easy lift, but as you can see, we have some good partners in Ivy Tech and Gleaners and Eskenazi Health and Cafe, which is a major supportive service organization within the neighborhood, Next Studios, many others that will come into this space and make a big difference. So our key benchmarks as we go forward, the next slide if we could. We are firming up and finalizing the capital stack. It is clearly our biggest challenge right now. The ready funds will make a difference. We are working with private investment, probably in the form of some type of debt. We have philanthropy. Marianne Glick has been very involved, and she's helping lead that charge. And we're wrapping up on some discussions with the public sector as far as their involvement. You can see the level of investment that we're hoping to work with. We have a major new tenant that is talking about taking space. It's actually the bus operator for IPS, private contractor. IPS serviced buses out of there for a while. We have some good space. They have a need. We're pretty excited about that as a new major tenant that generates revenue. Everybody that comes in, including Gleaners, is going to pay rent. This is how we will operate it and sustain it over time. And certainly the first group is a new tenant that we're pretty excited about. You can see we're finalizing the space plans for Gleaners. We need to get that done, 23,000 square feet. Eskenazi Health with its kitchen cafeteria and some of the support space. We're finalizing those space plans as we speak. We need to determine the Ivy Tech space and budget. And they really have been the most difficult to kind of pin down and determine exactly what their role is. Chancellor Esters is very committed to this. He feels that having this type of presence in this neighborhood is good for Ivy Tech and good for the neighborhood. And he's really excited about this. I think Ivy Tech is, I think you were talking about when we started this meeting, is going through its own strategic planning and looking at what kind of role it can play and then how they support that. And that discussion has changed a little bit from where we were 6 months ago. So we are adapting to where they're at now and determining how they take space, but we think they're going to take a significant amount of space within this building at the end of the day. And then IPS acquisition. We are buying this property from IPS. We have an agreement with the board to purchase it. We'd like to get that done by the end of June. We had a discussion with IPS just last week that might get extended out a little bit, but we are really, these benchmarks are all summer benchmarks. They need to be accomplished. Gleaners needs to get in and get moving. Eskenazi Health will tell you the same thing. They have a desperate need for this kitchen, and they really want to get in there sooner, not later. And we want to really start to, we're having discussions with Walmart, which is on the corridor. They hope to open up in spring of 2023. And so they are starting to look at that tsunami of need that they're going to have as far as filling those positions. And they see this as a potential source of really helping support some of that job need. So we're time sensitive now and really hope to come out of the summer being in there, modifying the space and getting ready for a late fall opening. That will probably be phased through much of 2023. I'll stop at this point. Yes, Rose.
I have 3 questions wrapped together. So Cafe is on board.
They are. They will be a core collaborator, and they'll occupy space in the building.
Fantastic. Is the total project cost of all things more than $10 million?
It is. We will end up with a budget. Our top end budget is $30 million. If we do a lot of we have about $20 million in deferred maintenance on the building. So if we do that in the first 3 years, we're operating with a $30 million budget. If we do it over a longer period of time, we're probably starting with about a $20 million budget.
Do you understand that if you're over $10 million and if ARPA funds invested in it, you will have to pay prevailing wages and use Davis-Bacon?
Yeah, we do understand that. Yep, thank you.
Perfect.
Yep.
You can complete everything in a timely manner ahead of any deadlines.
Right. Our timetable is as soon as we take charge of the space, we take control of the space, that we will be in there right away and up and operating with our core collaborators.
Does your capital stack have enough flexibility that if EY or IEDC says that something you want to use funds for isn't eligible, you can move it to another part of the program?
I believe so. We'd have to look at the particulars, but I believe so.
Yeah, we don't know
Yep.
the particulars yet
Yep.
either, but I'm assuming that there may be some.
We certainly have enough different uses that we can move that around.
Thank you.
Yep. Ben?
Hurdles to IPS acquisition, is it just due diligence, is there financial hurdles still to acquiring?
Yeah, I think our biggest hurdle is getting that capital stack to work. And I think it may be our only significant hurdle. Not, we'll have some other minor hurdles, but I think the one that we're focused on right now is getting that capital stack put together and doing it in a fairly short timetable.
And you have commitments that aren't kind of particular, but you do have commitments from like Glick Foundation and some of those others for.
We feel we have a partnership, and and the Glick Foundation and some of her partners have been very supportive. So right now they're verbal, but they're verbal with a level of commitment that they understand that we're counting on them to maintain and get us to the finish line as far as their level of commitment.
So assuming you guys can acquire the property, if you guys have ready, Gleaners will be able to operate end of this year.
That's our hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the we that's doing the purchasing? Is the hub a 501c3 or?
It's a really good question. So we want it to be a not-for-profit. want to say that this is going to be owned as an asset controlled by the community. So we have envisioned a not-for-profit that would have a board that is majority neighborhood leadership based. It will also have some broader regional leadership on it that's easy, that's able to network with a much broader base of support. And we've started to talk about what that looks like. So we hope to have that entity in place within actually the incorporation papers and the filing for that entity in place in June. And it would be the lead entity. It will most likely partner with an existing not-for-profit from a capacity standpoint to make sure that it has a strong set of legs from day one.
So I like the fact that you're guys talking about wraparound services,
Mhm.
because in this kind of work, right, it's the most effective way, right, to really help people. And I know that Cafe has been in that area for a long time, working in that area and attempting to offer wraparound services and those kind of things. How will this fit in with or complement Cafe's services? I like hearing that Cafe's on board and they'll have a role there, but what exactly will this be providing that Cafe's not providing?
I'm going to start, and then you may jump in. You have a lot of experience with this, Eric, in this neighborhood. First and foremost, Cafe's playing a very important role. They're inundated every day, and so they are not able to scale to the need. And so what this facility is intended to do is scale to the need and help Cafe expand its role and its services. It will tell you it's occupying every square inch of its current space. And if it's going to take on additional need, it's going to have to need it will need additional space, probably additional budget. So by collaborating, we think the opportunities are greater for helping them better serve the entire neighborhood and expand their services.
Yeah, I would expect that Cafe would kind of help us direct some of that activity in the building. We fully anticipate they're going to have some offices there to help them with capacity, but then also as more collaborators come into this group, we expect to see more services open, more opportunities beyond service, so like the business opportunities and employment opportunities that'll also come along. But Gleaners, Cafe, we're kind of the get them in the door businesses. We want them to see there's a service here that you need. We're going to fulfill it today, but also we want to connect you with everything else that you're going to need to succeed long term. At Gleaners, we talk a lot about happy and whole neighbors. We can feed neighbors, but we can't get them everything they need. So we have to collaborate with partners like Cafe and others that we expect to come in over time as they recognize this opportunity hub for what it is.
What percent of your budget do you think you have committed?
It's a good question. We're probably 2/3 of the way there. We have what I would call the public sector chunk, which could come from 2 or 3 different sources, but anticipate it will. We are working on right now. We've had some recent meetings. We're optimistic about getting that across the finish line, but we are clearly not there yet. But anticipate that we should be there in the next 30 to 45 days.
And how much is the ready ask?
I'm going to go with the 9-star response, all of it. So, but in reality, we'd love somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 million, if that's possible. It would support several organizations plus just what we have to do to get the building ready and up and running. But all of it would be. I'm sorry? Yes, it is.
On that same vein, is Ivy Tech's asked for that?
We believe it is. Again, we have some, and don't see, we did not identify them as a major hurdle. They have some minor hurdles that they're going to go through. So the timing of them occupying space, which space and what needs to be done to that space will kind of determine how they play a role. Clearly, can speak to Eskenazi Health, can speak to Gleaners, can speak to Next Studios and Cafe and a couple of others that we may be doing some very early space programming on, so we see them benefiting. Ivy Tech, I believe, will be in that mix as well, but we do have some things to iron out.
But not the strive to lead part.
No,
maybe,
not the
'cause
strive to
That's
lead.
in the Madison territory, and you guys will be in the Indianapolis.
We are in the Indianapolis
Right.
territory, and know that they are committed to finding a way to participate. We think some of that responsibility is gonna fall upon us to help them figure that out.
So you're saying there are aspects of the building that can be activated right away after land acquisition, and some of those minor hurdles like leaners and potentially some others, because that 20 million deferred maintenance, a lot of that can be done as things are already started.
It is, we can phase it. I mean, our preference all along, we may have been too ambitious with this, is to get it all done in the first 3 years, because it means a more efficiently run building, that its utility costs go down, there's a number of benefits to that. We're still gonna shoot for that, it may take us longer to get that capital raised. But we are starting with somewhere between 60 to 80,000 square feet pre-leased. So we have significant much greater than anything I anticipated. I did not expect that we'd have that level of interest opening up. We get to beyond 80%, which is our self-sustaining number, 80% occupancy in either year 3 or year 4, which is much better than we projected when we started this. So we're pretty happy with where we're at.
Were you able to talk any more to like who your transportation partners are, who you're talking about, how to get people to the corridor and bridge that gap? Because like you said, it might as well be a different country. I mean,
Right.
that's very true. If there's no transportation, no sidewalks, no
Yep.
way.
That's me.
Yeah, Randy, I was gonna throw it at you.
We're working with CERTA.
The bus program
Yeah.
would connect with
They've
John
already got
Marshall.
that drawn, and that's
Okay,
kind of what my
so it'd be
side-
wrapped into that program. Very good.
And Councilor Jackson has done a great job of setting up a demonstration program that's more kind of internal to the neighborhood, so getting people moved around the neighborhood. So we think she will be able to help us get people to John Marshall. And then the CERTA program will be able to help us get people from John Marshall to the jobs and back. So both ends are being worked on, and there's some promising opportunity there. An essential opportunity. We really have to get that connection made.
Long term, is there other quality of life type amenities? I mean, all of it's really quality of life, but is there play type amenities or anything like that?
Yeah, we will have outdoor playground, open space, activity space. We see the gym as a major venue, and then the outdoor rec area, the track and field. We've talked to a number of potential operators, nothing firm at this point, but we're hoping to operate those as potentially an enterprise that is run by somebody from the neighborhood. And that enterprise will generate an opportunity for somebody, but it has to be consistent with the mission of it being available to the residents of this neighborhood and being seen as a real opportunity. So it's gotta be programmed the right way.
Right.
So we're looking at that. We are not as far along in that thinking yet, but we certainly see that as
Seems
being the
that
direction.
coming
Yeah.
step is- and then-
Auditorium, the same thing.
Right.
Cultural, programming, and see that as an enterprise opportunity too. Just like we do the kitchen cafeteria, by the way.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
A little bit beyond our 30 minutes. Any more